Hi, everyone. We're the co-founders of ATX. I'm Emily Gibson.
I'm Caitlin McFarland, and you probably know by now we're the host for your weekend on the couch. We appreciate you being here with us, and it's a packed 3 days full of mini surprises, some of which you've already seen.
Hopefully at this point we shared a cup of coffee together, probably too many beverages last night, but the TV goodness is all still coming your way. At the heart of ATX is the celebration of television. But more than that, it's our belief in the power of story. And that we are extremely proud to be hosting this next conversation. We're also very honored to have Gloria, Calderón, Kellett, and Tanya, Saracho as two of our advisory board members. They have been the leaders of putting this conversation together, and we appreciate their stories and their support of us more than words can say. And with that, I'm going to bring up our moderator, Maria Elena Fernandez from Vulture.
Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to the ATX TV from the couch. I'm going to now introduce our 4 panelists, beginning with Stephen Canals, the co-creator, showrunner, and director of FX's Emmy-nominated and fabulous drama, Pose.
Whoop, whoop.
There he is. Ilana Peña, the creator and executive producer of Disney Plus's aspirational coming-of-age story, Diary of a Future President, which was renewed for a 2nd season this morning. Felicidades, Ilana.
Gracias.
Tanya Saracho, the creator, showrunner, and director of Starz's Latinx queer delight, Vida, which ends on Sunday, and you should all definitely watch. Tanya was awarded the Media Advocacy Award at NALIP's Latino Media Awards Gala last year for all the work she does to help Latinx community in Hollywood. And last, we have Gloria Calderón Kellett, the co-creator and co-showrunner of One Day at a Time Reboot, which is based on her Cuban-American family. Before we begin, I want to tell you that we're raising money for Direct Relief and the Actors Fund. So please use the donate button below to donate. We suggest donations of $9 since this is season 9 of the ATX TV Festival, but any amount will help a lot. Thank you, panelists, for being here with us today. Before we get started, we're here to celebrate authentic storytelling and our Latin culture. But I thought it would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about what a tough last couple of days it's been in the country, because it's really relevant to your stories that you tell, the people that you're trying to represent and uplift. So I just wanted to ask you, how are you doing? How are you doing in these days of the pandemic, the escalating events in Minneapolis? You know, how are you feeling? How many candles did you light, Tanya?
2. I mean, I don't have anything articulate to say, except it's been a knot that's been choking me for a while. Because, you know, 2 days ago, there were some protests here in Los Angeles, and last night in Denver, and I've just been glued to it. And like feeling just helpless. Like, what do you do? Yes, I donated. I signed the petition. I made 1 phone call. Tomorrow, and I've only left the house twice for the vet. Tomorrow, I'm gonna go to a protest at Pacific Park, but because that's what I mean. I'm from Chicago, and we protest. You know, we take to the streets. But so when I came, this town doesn't do it as much. But this is a quarantine. We're gonna go protest. I've been in a group of people, you know, but like it feels like we have to do something. I don't have anything articulate, but like inaction doesn't seem like the answer.
It's pure impotent. I mean, I just feel impotent in terms of, like you said, it feels, donations and tweets feel hollow. You know, we have a much larger problem that we have to constantly band together to say Black Lives Matter. We are literally watching Black men being murdered in front of us on video every day. That's not normal. And we just have to keep on calling it out and stand up. People need to stand up for this in a very big way. It's obviously been happening in this country for so long. And I wish I had the salve, but I'm just left every single time in such, it just feels hopeless, you know? And I think trying to find the hope and trying to find the movement. And I think that in normal times we take to the streets, we find a way to make our voices heard. So how do we, in these times, where we have to stay at home in order to be safe. How do we try to get the message out? How do we band together? How do we let the Black community know that we see them and that we're going to raise our voices when we, you know, when somebody is speaking out against them, you know, or doing something like this constantly happens in this country.
Well, now we're going to listen to, I think that's been a huge thing. I think that I feel the same way, like any Instagram, it all feels so hollow, but I'm also like, I have to do something.
Sure.
But also I think the thing that we can do, or that I'm feeling like I'm just trying to do, is to listen to my Black friends, my Black coworkers, the people who are around me, and listen to what they have to say, because I think a lot of them feel like they've been shouting this into a void and the country has not been listening. And if we can start, I mean, I think this panel, I'm sure, is a group of people that's been listening, but, you know, I think listening and like, what are the things that, you know, what are they posting? What are they not, like, what are the things that are bubbling up inside of them? Because that's the voices that we so desperately need to hear that are being silenced.
Yeah, this issue it feels wholly personal to me because my family is mixed. It's, you know, Puerto Rican and Black. And so, you know, I think about my cousins and my uncles who are those Black men that have the potential to be targeted. You know, this is a systemic issue that has been going on for quite a long time. And I don't want to put it all on this current administration, but I think that the last 4 years have just emboldened a certain amount of racism, and obviously as well homophobia and sexism and misogyny. And it's just, I agree with what Gloria said, which is it just the tweeting and it just doesn't feel like enough anymore. And I think what we need to do outside of just amplifying the voices of the individuals who are on the front line doing the work, is that we just need to all band together. It's not enough just to say, I support the work of what other people are doing. I think it's, you know, we all have to come together to say, like, this is not okay. This is wrong and this has to stop.
How have you been taking care of yourselves? Do any of you like pour your feelings into your writing, or, you know, what other ways are you coping besides watching the news and getting on social? And, you know, it's so intense.
There's a really great quote by Toni Morrison about now being the time that artists have to come together and pour themselves and all of the hurt and all the fear and all of the pain and everything that they have to say into the work. And I've misquoted it a little there, but, you know, for me, I think, and I think for all of us, I think I could probably speak for all of us when I say, like, the work is wholly personal, and it always comes from a place of wanting to see our humanity as people, you know, and reminding the world that we are all so much more alike than we are different. And while there are differences, there's a huge amount of diversity that we need to celebrate that, as opposed to use that as a way to divide us, which I think is really the way that our differences have been used, especially over the last 4 years.
Well put.
That doesn't fully answer I don't have a piggybacking off of that, because that was a good answer. I've been doing a lot of spells. You asked how I've been dealing with it. I've been doing a lot of brujeria. That's just real. And I planted a garden. So that's how I've been dealing with, because you asked about the whole thing.
Hey, those are huge. Yeah. The brujeria helped?
Oh, yes. I did a protection spell. I did a health spell because I'm diabetic. So I'm like, so that shit is keeping me, St. Michael Archangel, Oshun, they're keeping me, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm a barren spinster who lives alone with 2 cats. Like, I need divine help, you know? So this is a big moment. You need to reach for the, you know? Just saying.
Yeah. Work. For me, it's work has been, it was very interesting because we had shot 6 episodes of our 13 when the shutdown happened. Mm-hmm. And we just jumped onto Zoom to do the writer's room. So it's like, I didn't really have time to process what was happening because I had so much work to do. And now that, you know, we're wrapping up the work from One Day at a Time, the room is wrapped and we're finishing the animated episode, which will air in a few weeks. Like, the work is dwindling. And there was a day that my internet went out completely. We just lost all power. I couldn't be on anything. And I had a full meltdown. And it was in that moment that I realized, like, oh, I've been really clinging to the connection with my staff, with my actors, with humans on Twitter, with Marco Polos, I have not really felt the weight of the moment because I've been distracted with all of this. And when the internet came back on, it really gave me pause to say, like, how grateful I am when so many people are out of work and so many people are really out there struggling, that this is privilege too, that having work and having a space to go that is valuing my voice is privilege. And so don't I then have a responsibility to speak up for those people and use this privilege in this moment to do so? And so that has been reverberating in everything that I'm thinking about as I go to, you know, I start on Amazon on Monday.
Wow.
And it's like it's interesting that it's in this moment that I feel the weight in the most, I feel the weight in a lifting up way, right? It's not something that feels heavy. It feels like something that's propelling me forward. And so I just have tremendous gratitude for that.
You definitely deserve to celebrate your big accomplishment today. And Tanya, I would say you too, you have a big weekend coming up. You know, the finale of Vida is wonderful and you did such a great job, and you know, you should really celebrate that. I hope you have that feeling when it's out. You know, the reason we're here is because all of you have accomplished so much already in terms of authentic storytelling and the stories that you've brought forth to the world. And I wondered if you would want to talk about if you could pinpoint when you realized that in your creative work, you were going to embrace your identity in such a holistic way. You know, sometimes to succeed, we actually move in the opposite direction, you know, and we take jobs and things that don't really embrace that part of us because we feel like that's what we need to do. What does it feel like to do that and succeed with it? But also, you know, like, where did that come from? Like, how did you know I'm going to do this now and it's going to work for me?
It's interesting. For me, that moment, it actually didn't happen, I think, when most people would assume it would have. I think that moment for me happened at 15 years old, mid-90s. I was working on a documentary short, which was funded by HBO Family, which was a nascent network at the time. And I was still living in the Bronx. And, you know, we had just, as a community, just come out of the crack and AIDS epidemics, and then firmly stepped foot into the reemergence of gang violence. And my South Bronx neighborhood was really rough. And we had a group of college students who came to our high school after school to teach us about film and filmmaking. And so I was a part of this organization called Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice. And we worked on a documentary short about turf violence. And about a week from completing the edit of this documentary, one of my classmates who was an associate producer on this documentary was shot and killed. And we went as a group of 9 high schoolers, you know, at the age of 15, we went from highlighting an experience in this film that we were working on to suddenly having the experience. But for me, that moment was really, I always sort of look at that as the moment that I decided, A, that I wanted to be a storyteller, but B, that I knew anytime I was ever going to create any content, that it would always center historically marginalized communities, because we so often are overlooked, you know, we're overshadowed. And I certainly don't have to go into historically how we always have to be, you know, 10 times better than our white contemporaries. But the reality is that is sort of that's the cloud that we live under. And so I bring that moment up because for me, that was really the moment where I decided, you know, I want to tell story, and these are the kinds of stories that I want to tell.
I love that.
When I was in the theater, I started an all Latina theater company the year I got out of college, because I knew that then at 21 or however old you are, that I'm like, that's true. Because I had gotten out of school and I was an actor. And all the roles had either like the one like, yes, Mr. Johnson, through here line, or just no lines. And I was like, wait, I went to Oxford. I studied Shakespeare. I went to Boston University. What is happening? You know what? Like, because anyway. So then I started this company, and it's never, that mission of centering Latina women hasn't stopped. So it was just natural when I came. I mean, Gloria met me the year I came to this land. And it was that mission, you know. So like, and I'm so glad that I found someone in Marta Fernandez at Stars to let me continue that, because that doesn't happen always, you know. Because my plays are always just only directed by Latinx. Of course, the cast. So I just brought that, but here there's like more people involved, and you have to find them and stuff. But like that was always the thing that made sense to me, you know.
I talked to Tanya a lot about this. Like for me, it's righting the wrong. Everything I write, I feel like, kind of to Ilana's point too, is for my 14-year-old self. You know, like I feel like I would watch TV and I would have to always see myself through the framework of the white. Like I was Molly Ringwald in those movies. You know, I was Felicity. So it's, you know, one of the conversations we always have at the beginning of every season is there is no trope in comedy that I won't do, because we don't have it. It's not a trope for Latinos. There isn't a comedy of us stuck in an elevator, right? So like, I understand that's a trope for the dominant. It's not a trope for us. You know, I would love to see the road trip with the Latino family. I would love to see, you know, like, so it was, a lot of it was like trying to have some sort of revisionist history. So much of what I make is for the 14-year-old me that was desperately searching to be seen on television, and understanding how not being seen made me feel invisible, and certainly made comments that people made about Latino people in my presence, ones that were very frustrating, because all they had to look to was what was on television, and that was not an accurate portrayal of who we were. And so then it became eye on the prize towards becoming a showrunner, and it was about survival until I got there. I hope that's not the way people have to go through it anymore. But, you know, for as many shows as are, you know, that really try to be inclusive, like Stephen's show, Tanya's show, Ilana's show, and mine, I hear about people who, you know, after each season, we don't know what's going to happen. I never have people turn down jobs. So I say, go get jobs. I mean, we don't know what's happening. So go get a job. And the amount of texts and emails I get from like, oh, it's still bad out here. Just FYI, it's still real rough. I miss you every day, you know? Really tells you that it's great that we exist, but it hasn't quite broken through yet.
Yeah, Tanya, I've heard you talk about this before as a false progress. And, you know, just looking at you guys, you know, it seems like there's so much success. Wow, there's so much Latinx content. Look at the four of you, right? Look at.
I have a canceled show. My show's canceled. They don't keep going, so it's
right. So you know, I did want to talk a little bit about that. You know, now there's Gentefied. There's, you know, the Love Victor is coming out on Hulu. There's the Baker and the Beauty. But, you know, do you all feel like there really is progress, or, you know, it still fits and starts?
Not enough. For me, like I can't imagine how Tanya's feeling, because I know I'm going to be bawling through all of the final episode of Vida because of the impact it's had on me personally. And I'm not the showrunner, right? Like seeing two sisters, two characters that got to be unlikable and got to be fully who they were, that were Latina. We don't see that. We don't get that. Seeing non-binary characters, we don't get that. And she made a show that was so beautiful and so nuanced and poetry. You know, Tanya, her language is poetry to me. She always jokes that it's because there's like a language, but she has poetry in her language, and so it's a loss. That's a loss that we only got 3 seasons of that show. So I'm so delighted to celebrate the new shows, the shows that are getting picked up in the new shows. But what we want is to really break through. We need Vidas to last for 6 seasons. We need Pose to last for 7 seasons. We need, right? Like that's the impact. Because I feel like they were just getting started on getting eyeballs and won the GLAAD Award, won for best, there was it was a ball running down a hill. People were talking about it. And it feels like a step back to have that pulled and have that not exist anymore. I mean, I can't speak for her and how emotional it must be for her. But
to your point, Gloria, and I was fortunate enough yesterday to moderate a WGA panel about Vida, and Tanya and the entire writer's room was there, which was really special and a beautiful moment. And I think the thing that I said yesterday was that, what I love about this industry is that the audience really is the one who will determine work, right? So like in the moment right now, we get very caught up on things like Emmy Awards and lists. But the reality is, the movie that won Best Picture a year ago, is that going to be the thing we're talking about 20 years from now? And I say that to say that I think there's this, Tanya created a jewel box of a show that for sure 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, people will still be talking about it, and the work remains. And so other people will continue to find it, and I think that that's what's really beautiful. And so while to me it's disappointing that we only got 3 seasons with Lynn and Emma and all the other beautiful characters that Tanya created, like the reality is we got those 3 seasons, and it'll be part of a much larger discourse, hopefully, that we all continue around why it is important to continue to have Latin representation.
Well, not to mention this.
That's a good and positive way to look at it, Stephen. I'm still too salty, but you are right. It will stand the test of time. I agree.
Yeah.
No, it will. And it was only, I think it should go for years and years and years, and we should be with this family and this bar for as long as, there are stories, which is forever. But I do feel so grateful as that show. I know for a fact that show paved the way for people to be like, oh, it works. Oh, look, people are watching and it's winning GLAAD Awards. And and that's something that I wish that they would hold on to that. And I wish it would continue. But I hope that Tanya and Gloria and Stephen, the impact does not go unnoticed, and it's felt throughout this industry. That's why they made the family, not why, but they made the family and Love Victor a Latinx family. We're seeing templates, we're seeing, unfortunately, the dominant culture needs examples of it working for them to take chances. And I feel that way. I feel, coming up, seeing you guys and seeing your success, I feel so grateful that I was able to literally point to these shows and say look, they do it and it works and audiences love it and it's winning awards. Why aren't we taking chances on more of these shows? And why aren't we giving them more seasons? I do feel that way as well.
It does feel like there's been progress, right? Because 10 years ago, think about 10 years ago, even when I got here, the show we were on, it was the one Latinx show with not a Latinx showrunner, So already, I think gatekeepers are understanding the probably no story about them without them notion, about us, which is very important because we've been told our narrative for decades now. The dominants have been saying who we are, telling us, we're consuming it, and then it becomes a poison, this artificial poison, because we believe it. You know what I mean? It's harmful for young women, young men to watch themselves like that at any age, but I do right now there is progress, but in some of these networks, we're the way we're producing these Latinx shows, it's the lower budget, so it's but you don't get Stranger Things budget, you get this budget, or something like that, Same thing, just the things we have to do to be excellent, Latin excellent, and yet with less resources. It's like, I mean, we're going to do it because we're immigrants and the children of immigrants, and we get it done, right? But it sucks that the obstacles are double, you know, for that, and the progress, because it's like we make progress and they take us one hours down, and or like they don't stand by Party of Five, boom, after one season. Like it you know, every time I sing a victory, they take it away, or it's under threat, you know. So that's why I'm like cautious when I say cuando no quiero cantar victoria yet, you know, because it's like so slow.
Have things improved at least as far as how you're valued, how a Latinx writer or a producer is valued? You know, I know we've spoken before, Gloria and Tanya, about how, you know, you take a job and you're made to feel like somebody did you a favor, like you don't really belong there, you got lucky somehow, you know, it's not what you brought to the table that got you this job. Do you feel like at least that part of it is improving? Is that perception in Hollywood that Latino talent does have something special to offer? Are you seeing that more or no?
That's kind of hard. It's hard for me to answer because I feel that I'm treated well because the show was successful.
Mm-hmm.
Because it worked, right? Like it worked. So there's now a scoreboard that I can be like, well, I can say before when, you know, the first few seasons of the show, I've told you this before, Maria, like people would say, Norman Lear, what do you think? And he'd go, I don't know, ask Gloria. Right? Like, but they asked the white guy 4 times before they asked me. Now they just ask me, but it's because he gave them permission to ask me. Right. So it was still, I still needed to have the babysitter bless me as worthy. Mm-hmm. And in that way, I'm so grateful that my advocate was so generous to shine the light on me. And as a result of that, I think people know who I am now, right? So I think that's good. For me, I'm more concerned about the Latinos that are out there that are the one in the room. I'm concerned about them and how that's going, because I don't know that that's changed. I think that's still the same.
Have you ever experienced that, Ilana? That feeling?
Yeah, I'm like, I was the one in the room, but it was a very warm, it was the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend writers.
Yeah.
And it was a show that was committed. It was like they promoted me and believed in my voice because they believed that they wanted my voice in the room. Mm-hmm. Like I feel so I guess in that way, it is like I've seen the good version of that. I've seen the version where like when I was a writer's assistant and I pitched my first joke, or it was my birthday, and Aline Brosh McKenna took out her phone and took a photo of me and tweeted it. And I said, this is like at Ilana Cubana. She just pitched her first successful joke in the room. Like she amplified my voice literally. And then, you know, they believed in me. But yeah, so it's hard because I don't know what it's like when you don't have inclusive, you know, wonderful women at the helm, women or men at the helm. But it's hard to speak to because I try to do that for all the assistants on my show. Like, you know, if they're here, if they're in the room, I'm like, let's give you an episode. Let's like, you know, use your voice to its fullest potential. And it always works out. But yeah, I have heard, I don't think that's the norm, unfortunately.
Well, Stephen, you encountered some of that too, right? When you were trying to develop Pose. I know you had written a draft of it when you were at UCLA, and you know you tried to shop it around and didn't. You know, what kind of hurdles did you face back then before you met Ryan Murphy?
You know, I'm sure what a lot of folks here in this industry, the script was seen as it was too much of everything. You know, it was too Black, it was too brown, it was too queer, it was too trans, it was a period piece. You know, and this is a really risk-averse industry, you know, and I know that these productions cost millions of dollars. The reality is, to go back to a question that you asked earlier and to piggyback off of something that Gloria was saying, the reality is that in terms of how people interact with you now, I completely agree. Success is everything, right? The reality is who I am as a storyteller really did not change between my graduating from UCLA in 2015, shopping around that original draft of Pose, and then who I am now post 1, 2, 3 seasons of Pose. You know, so what really is the difference? The difference is, oh, you have a produced work now and people seem to be responding to it. But I, as a storyteller, didn't change.
Right.
And it's fascinating because even after the first season of Pose, I cannot tell you the number of execs and production companies, and my memory's long, so I remember who all these people are, who would invite me to talk to me after the first season. And the first, I would say 99% of the time, one of the first 3 questions I was asked was some version of, so what exactly did you do on that first season of the show? As if somehow, you know, my name being on the credits saying that I'm a creator or co-creator and an executive producer wasn't enough. And so even then, I was still having to prove my worth. Like, how did you get to this room? How did you get to that space? You know, and the subtext to that really is, we're having a hard time believing that somebody like you managed to get to where you are. You know, and I think that that's the industry that we all operate in, you know, but I would hope that on the heels of a show like Pose, which is just unapologetically queer, you know, and unapologetically Afro-Latin and Black, I think a show, really all the shows here, frankly, that are just, this is just what we are, you know, we just are what we are, that would be enough for the industry to take a beat, you know, to take notice and to say there's value in telling these stories. Because the reality is, as my mentor Neil Landau always says, niche is the new mainstream. And yet I still hear that from folks. Like, even now, having a deal at 20th, which is lovely, and I'm treated with so much respect, and, you know, I really love the team there. It's always fascinating to hear folks ask me some version of the question, which is, you know, is it hard to get your material pushed along? You know, and is there going to be resistance to the types of stories that you want to tell?
We have to be advocates as well, because we know that we have to be the ones that laid the groundwork for the rest. You know, I joke with Tanya all the time, like, we're putting up this bullshit for Martin and Linda. You know,
for Marvin and Linda.
Like, that was like for a long time, it was like for Martin and Linda.
I don't cry. Yeah, this is for Linda, this is for Marvin.
Yes, because it's like, we got to stick it out. We got to stick it out. We got to do it for the next batch. And they know it and they feel it and they feel the love. But like, I think that I'm more jaded than this lovely bunch, in that I have sat in gratitude for the first 12 years of my, I've sat in so much gratitude that I'm sick of saying thank you. I am ready to say you're welcome, because what we have is valuable. And we've all said thank you a lot. I think it's time for the industry to say you're welcome, and we are going to bring more in. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Hear, hear.
Do you think that it's important for us to embrace our Latinx identity under that umbrella in order to increase our voice in Hollywood, you know, as opposed to like retaining our individual cultural identities, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Mexican? Do you think it benefits us to embrace more being Latinx so that we can be a larger group?
Like to embrace pan-Latinidad, you mean? Like pan-Latinidad?
Yes.
You know what's really funny about you asking that question is that Tanya and I actually had breakfast and we had this very conversation. So funny. We talked about that. Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating question. And I think that I think there are arguments on both sides for why there are benefits to sort of treating us as one monolithic group. And then there's certain, I think, are really important benefits to acknowledging that we are part of a larger diaspora and that there are nuances and differences within. I think we need both. I don't think it's an or, I think it's an and, you know? I think we just we need to have both versions. And frankly, because I think of a show like on Post, for example, I have Afro Latinx performers, and I think Pose is a show that I'm honored to be here, because I think for the most part, Pose is typically looked at as being a Black show. And we overlook the fact that we have Latinx performers on that show. And then I think about a show like Tanya's, for example, right, which is so unapologetically Mexican, right? And there are so many very specific nuances to what it means to be Mexican, which is very different cultural touchstones that I had growing up in a Puerto Rican household, so I think we need both is the short answer.
The thing about
go ahead.
Latinidad is that it is a construct that was put up on us. You know what I mean? Like, it used to be Hispanidad. We used to be Hispanics, then we're Latin, then we're Latinx, because it's, somebody created the umbrella, not us, and they put us under it, right? So we are both resisting it and also embracing it, because en masse, if these are our commonalities, right, we could have some power, as the almost 20% in this country. So it is a double-edged sword. I think we should be allowed to be specific, to have a Cuban and half Cuban experience, because that's also very American right now. My girls are pochas, they don't speak Spanish, so it's Mexican American experience, and then have Afro Latinidad in that urban center the way it truly is, so like and those are very, even the two Cuban shows are very different, so God, where is the Dominican show? Where is the Chilean show? Where are the art? Because we are those things, but in that specificity, I feel like it can be universal. And so we just haven't been allowed in forever. Well, I used to audition for all these like generic Latina roles, like we just want a generic Latino accent. From where? Well, just generic. From where? I don't. That's like, sorry, real quick. I auditioned for this Fruit Loops thing, and I had to come in and be the grape. And so it was a grape, and they had already cast the banana, they had already cast the apple, and they were just looking for a different grape, right? So I was like this, like how do you want, like what voices do you want? No, me dijo, puedes hacer un acento de uva, can you do a grape accent, and like I think basically when I heard the thing, it was like this fake Cuban, but like Caribbean-esque, a fake Mexican-esque, like these fruits were their version of our Latinidad, I mean, and then it goes on the macro. They've wanted the gatekeepers just an answer to Latinidad, the way there's an answer to other ethnicities, like what is the Latinx show? They're not gonna say Latinx. They're gonna say, what is the Hispanic show or whatever? Like if there's one reality, like one narrative for us, but I think they've tried. Remember the Taco Bell doc? He wasn't even like that. They've tried to compress it and make everyone Mexican for a little bit. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like it's been problematic because we haven't been at the helm. So I hope that they keep letting us be specific, like these 4 shows, and Gentified and then other shows that get to be specific.
I think what's important though, to piggyback off what you were just saying, Tanya, is that the reality though is that there's a lot for the gatekeepers, and I think that this goes beyond just race. I think they use a lot of coded language, right? So like in the case of when I was pitching Pose, it's very urban, but really what does that mean? Urban just means it was too Black. And I think in the same way, I have found in being in spaces, and I think your story spoke to that, it's like if someone says we want something Hispanic, like what exactly does that mean? Because I know I've been in spaces where behind closed doors, typically when they say we want something Hispanic, when you press them, somehow that's become coded language for Mexican. And like that immigration, yeah, and it's very, very, it's just really problematic and very limited.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk with you guys forever, but I think we need to wrap. So thank you so very much for being with us today. I hope you all stay safe and healthy and practice your grape accents.
I said uva. You're okay?
I mean, Gloria likes to act. She should practice her great
She's an
accent.
actress.
Great accent, you guys.
Let's ask Jack.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a
It was
pleasure.
so lovely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, ATX.
Thank you so much.
Nice seeing your faces.
Yes.